Hello, good, kind, beautiful people of the internet. I am here today to make a video for a project that I'm doing in my critical thinking class. And in my critical thinking class, I had to have a conversation with a AI chatbot and pretty much give my breakdown on what I think about this philosopher and their beliefs. And, you know, we'll see where we go from this conversation. But I have some talking notes which I will be looking at during this video if you see me looking down. And so let's get started. So, Alan Watts. What can I say about Alan Watts? I think of Alan Watts, I've heard videos of his voice, audio books of his voice. I've listened to some of his books before. I've read one or two of them before. And he is what one would think of as like the definition of calm. Like, I could imagine that he was not one to easily anger. He seemed to be a very warm-natured person. I'm just going to come out and say it. He seemed a little on the hippie side, which would not be wrong because most of what I've heard about him and what I've read is that he feels like we're all connected to nature. And that's one of his beliefs, is that, we act like we're not connected. Like we're not connected to the universe. Like we're not connected to nature. Like we're not connected to each other. And we misuse technology. We misuse the earth and her resources. And so the consequences of that is that our views change. We use those things to dominate each other. We use our resources and technology to control each other and dominate. This is just my understanding of what he's trying to say. And so, yeah. And so what he says is that if we shift our consciousness, it could lead to a more peaceful coexistence for everyone. And so here we are to my talking points about, what Mr. Watts is saying. And I hear what he's saying, but I do believe that humans are connected to everything. We do use Earth for its resources, but how do we not use Earth for its resources without existing? Because I don't want to sound anti-human, but we're technically parasites of the universe. Like, I don't know how else to say it. We do use the earth for its resources. We use the animals. We use each other. We hurt each other. And we feel like everyone feels like they're different or they're like the black sheep of the world. But technically, we are all connected. And I just know that Mr. Alan Watts would be turning in his grave if he knew about social media and how it gives the illusion that we are all together. But we are more disconnected now than ever. Depression rates through the roof. Suicide through the roof. Unhappiness through the roof. And I see how he could feel like technology is a distraction from human connection. And being present would change some of this, in a sense. I feel a lot calmer when I'm present and I don't have my phone around me and I'm just existing. But the time that we live in at the current moment is really technology forward. So it's really difficult unless you're more of an off the grid kind of person. Like for me personally, if I take 2 or 3 months, even a year off of like Facebook or anything, people are gonna think I'm dead. Not that I'm important for people to check like that, but that's kind of like that's the level of self isolation that people have created for themselves. Like if you go off of social media, it means you're isolated. But we live in the real world, and you could literally just go knock on your neighbor's door and say hello. But this is a technological age, so I could see that being difficult. And this technology, our cars, our our engines, our factories, our chemical plants, they all contribute to the destruction of the environment. And so that alone can affect your mind. And he speaks a lot about the outer world and our inner world being at peace and those things. But in terms of being better to the environment, I'm not going to say it's too late, but we're kind of doomed in that department. Unless a person of the future makes a different decision. But I feel like we've already crossed that line of using our resources, and like we have people recycling, we have engineers, we have scientists trying to come up with new ways, but the pollution is there, and it's deeply rooted in our DNA at this point. And this is just my own personal opinion. The pollution is deeply rooted in our DNA. And even if we were kinder to the environment now, our smog, our chemical pollution, it's in our water, it's in our rainwater, it's in the sky, it's in the ground, it's in our soil, it's in our food, it's everywhere. And so, in a way, I just feel like that alone will mess with the chemistry of your mind. And so that is how your outer world is starting to affect your inner world. Yes, we can do some soul searching and we can do some therapy and those different things, but in my personal opinion, scientifically speaking, over time we've already destroyed our minds without thinking about it. And maybe a lot of us are aware. Who knows? But that's just my personal opinion. And so, just looking at my talking points. And so, like I said before, we are more divided. And I think that this mental confusion and mental illness is a very popular thing right now. And it's being broadcast worldwide. I feel like it's cool to be mentally ill or mentally distraught. And we as humans, we are self-serving. We are self-absorbed, and we will be the cause of our own existence. Our own existence being suffering, we are going to be the cause of our own extinction. That's the word I was looking for. We're going to be the cause of our own extinction. And I don't think that there's anything we can really do about that at this present moment. I'm not a scientist, but this is just my opinion. I live in the world and I've accepted these things. And so I choose not to live a life of stress because of it. I am only here for the present time. And I can't worry about those things. I have to be present. Because if you try to worry about the future, you would just live under a rock inside of your house, wrapped in bubble wrap, and you will never experience life. But that is that for the first topic. Now, into our second topic. Happiness comes from accepting both the outer world around us and the inner world inside us. The unconscious mind and the irrational desires lurking behind the awareness of the ego. So, the first topic and the second topic are kind of in line with each other. When I chose them, I didn't really see it that way at first, but as I continue to read, I realized that they're kind of in line with each other, and I thought that was pretty cool. And so, my chat with the AI chat went very well. I gained some good insight on Alan Watts' thoughts on happiness. And, some of his ideas were that suffering comes when trying to resist the present and our attempt to try to control and manipulate everything in our external world. And identifying with your ego tends to lead to isolation and dissatisfaction. He says that we are more whole when we accept the inside of our minds and our outer minds and the physical world. So, what do I think about this? He thinks we'll be more connected. And so, how do I feel about this? Let me just think for a second. If we just accept how things are on the outside world and the inside world, that's the key to figuring out happiness. It's the key to ending suffering. I think as a human myself, I can't speak because I'm not a kangaroo or anything else, but I think humans like suffering, whether it be good or bad. Suffering is suffering, and it doesn't always mean that you're not accepting of the world. And even so, sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I'll be back. So, I'll just look at my notes one more time. So, we suffer when we don't get what we want and we kind of throw a fit about it. That's when the suffering comes in. And the key to being happy is to accept what's going on the outside and what's going on the inside. And I guess I have some complaints about this idea. I can see where he's coming from, but at the same time, does this mean that you shouldn't reflect on who you are as a person? Does this mean that you should accept that you're not a nice person? That you're not kind to others, you're not kind to animals, you're not kind to anyone? Does accepting those facts make you happier? I don't think so, because you're still gonna be, whether you accept it and you feel like the outside world accepts it, there's always going to be that little piece of doubt that comes from an opposing view. For example, just think of one example. Say you're a person that's just like, I hate kids, do away with them. Everyone knows you hate kids and they accept it. But a part of you is going to say, well, these kids, man, I don't like them. And I wish to never have them. If I could get my reproductive organs taken out, I would. And then another part of you is going to say, well, I was a kid one day, and why do I hate kids so much? So accepting those two things about yourself, are you happy? I wouldn't say so. a part of you might still very well think, like, I wonder what it would be like for me to have a kid. Or does this mean that you don't reflect on the reasons why you don't want to have a kid? Which is like, maybe you have your own personal trauma. Maybe you have, fears, statistics of the world saying that people are not kind to children. Whatever it is, does that mean that you don't explore the reasons that you are fighting against yourself? We suffer when we try to control everything. But why do we have this sense of control, or the sense of we need to control things? We try to control things because it brings us comfort. That's my strong belief, is that it brings us comfort, it brings us some form of stability, it brings us some form of pretty much comfort, because no one likes to fear what's going to happen next. We don't know what's going to happen next, but we like to pretend we do. Religious figures like to say that they know that Jesus is coming, but I don't know if anyone really knows that. And I'm not above ruffling some feathers. But besides that, people don't like to fear the unknown. It's scary to not know what's going to happen next or what to do next. And so we want to control situations, we want to control people, we want to control things. And when we don't get our way, of course, we're going to have a tantrum about it. It's going to suck. Like, how do you just accept, oh, well, this is just how it is. I'm not getting what I want. So, people who accept those things, and they accept that things are not going to go their way, maybe they accept it a little too hard. So is that crossing to the realm of depression? I don't know. But I think a lot of people who are depressed accept their inside world and their outside world. I think they accept the fact that I can't control anything, and so I'm sad because I know I can't control anything, but I'm just gonna let things be. There are people in the world who have very high functioning depression, and I feel like they have lived with some form of acceptance. Like, yeah, I'm sad. This is life. I have to keep moving. And then there's another thing too. Like, happiness isn't a thing that just stays with you. You're not always happy or always sad. It's a balancing act of the universe, I believe. For every sad thing that happens, a happy thing happens. And then it just goes back and forth. And so that is my personal opinion on the matter. And I hope that I made my talking points. And, I would say that it is easy for people to think about other people. I feel like most of the time, the ones that care about others, the ones that care about the environment a little more than the others, they've seen what happens in the environment. They've seen the damage that it does, and it affects them deeply. They may be empathetic people, and so maybe that's how that works. Maybe the people who have bigger egos lack empathy. Maybe they've been crushed to the point where they've managed to be able to put all of that aside and think of just themselves. I don't have the answers. I don't know if anyone else has the answers. But all of it's really good to think about. And it's always nice to hear and see other people's perspectives on things. And that is it for now. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you. And that is how I feel about Alan Watts. I think he's a pretty cool dude. Really hippie-like. He has a very calm sounding voice, very nice to listen to on audiobook. And I definitely recommend other people to check him out. Goodbye.